Hey everyone, it's me Joji, and today we're going to be taking a look at some more post-rotation decks. Now, what that means, of course, is all these decks are going to be using cards only found in Brilliant Stars all the way up to Temporal Forces. Of course, post-rotation happens right as Temporal Forces becomes tournament legal. So of course, let's take a look at some of those decks that you might see or might want to try out. And first off, we have this Banette EX deck. Now, a lot of people were excited for Banette EX when it first came out because of Everlasting Darkness. It does 30 damage, but its effect essentially worked like Toxicroak EX's ability back in, oh gosh, it was not Sun and Moon, but X and Y era. And people hated that thing with the, I think it was like Toxic Laser. Honestly, I can't remember the name at the moment, but essentially it stops your opponent from using item cards their next turn. So using this on turn technically 2, if you're going first, most of the time when you play this before rotation, was ideal. But now we have a new card that makes this perfect for going second. We'll talk about that card in a bit. But of course, Banette EX, we're running a 4-3 line. Then we're coupling this with Gardevoir EX. Luckily, we still have the Routes Refinement, the Curly of Refinement engine, so we do have that, which is perfect. And of course, we have the Gardevoirs to use as our attackers in case we want to hit a bit harder with 190 damage. We have a Lumineon for getting some supporters, and probably one on our turn 2 if possible. We have a Radiant Greninja for draw support, and then let's go on to supporters. We have Iono. We have 4 Iono. We have 3 Boss's Orders, 2 Professor's Research, and 2 of new card called Salvatore. Now, this lets you search your deck for a Pokemon, of course, except any Pokemon with an ability that evolves from one of your Pokemon in play, and put it on top of that Pokemon and evolve it. Then you shuffle your deck. But you can use this. This is the best part of this card. You can use this card on a Pokemon that was put into play when setting up to play, or on the turn it was put into play. I'm really excited because that stipulation right there. If you start Shuffit as your active Pokemon going second, you can use Salvatore to essentially evolve into Banette EX and use Everlasting Darkness turn 1 going second. So if your opponent did nothing to set up turn 1 going first, they're out of luck for item cards. They better hope that they have some good supporter cards to help them out, because they are not using any items for probably the rest of the game until, they stop us from using Banette EX. So it's gonna be very interesting. A lot of disruption and just stopping people from using item cards. This is gonna be a good card early on until people figure out how to counteract it. Maybe they're just gonna decide, oh, going second is usually the best idea. And for the most part, a lot of decks have been doing that more often. I think Giratina V-Star likes to go second for more Comfey, and of course the Colress's Experiment, and then also the Charizard likes to do that as well to get off an Arven if necessary to set up a bit more faster that way. So hopefully you win the coin flip, or they don't know you're playing Banette EX so you can go second. Anyways, let's go into the item cards. Because we want to find that Salvatore, we want to use 4 Pokegear. We're going to be using 4 Buddy Popping, which is a new card coming out in Temporal Forces, I believe. It eventually works as a Battle VIP pass, and the stipulation of a low ball where you have to have the Pokemon, 2 basic Pokemon, be at 70 HP. So of course, if we need to set up the routes or the Shuffit, it's a great card to use. We have 4 Ultra Ball. We have 2 Earthen Vessel because we may want to find that energy we need to use for Everlasting Darkness sooner. 1 Lost Vacuum, a Super Rod, 1 Switch, 1 Prime Catcher, another new card, It's probably the best A-spec card to use in any deck. I say almost any deck, I should say, because there are a few that are a bit niche that we'll see in a later video. We have a 4 sealed stone, and then we have 4 different stadiums. Now, I took inspiration from the Banette EX lists that have done pretty well in the past couple of regionals. So that one used the Calamitous Wasteland to prevent a Pokemon from retreating, which is perfect, right? They can't use their switch card, and then they have to pay more to retreat anyways, so it's a good way to disrupt that way. And then they also ran the Collapse Stadium, which actually might help in other cases now, like the Incineroar. But then I also put in both the Pokemon League headquarters and the Temple Sinnoh. So depending on what deck you're playing against, I would say choose what stadium you want to play in first, and then have a second one once they bump that one or Lost Vacuum it, because it almost, so you want to start off with maybe the Calamitous Wasteland, and then switch over to, if they're playing a lot of basic Pokemon, switch over to the Pokemon League headquarters, or if they're using a lot of special energy, switch over to the Temple Sinnoh, or if they're using a lot of utility from their bench, use the Collapse Stadium instead. And of course, for our energy, we're running 8 energy. I believe previous lists actually use only 6, but because we lost Fog Crystal and now have to rely on Earthen Vessel, I figured we may want to put 8 total instead. But that is going to be the list. And surprisingly, now that I'm thinking about it, this next deck we're going to be taking a look at, just like Banette EX, is a ghost type Pokemon. But yeah, I think a lot of people are going to get frightened by the fact that they're going to be getting hit by an Everlasting Darkness turn 1 of their opponent going second. So let's see what other disruption we can see in this next deck. And like I said, this next deck is featuring another ghost type Pokemon, this time Gengar EX. And let me tell you, just this artwork that they're using is so cool. I mean, I think this might be one of the first drawn EX Pokemon, because a lot of the other EX Pokemon from Scarlet Violet seem to be almost like a CG, but this one seems almost completely hand-drawn. Still, it's a cool artwork, and I think the secret rare looks even cooler. Anyways, going back, they're introducing a whole new line in Temporal Forces for Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar. The Ghastly is a bit underwhelming. It is a 60 HP Pokemon, so be careful. And its attacks aren't that great. I mean, if you need to use Mysterious Beam to flip a coin, if heads discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon, do so, but you want to obviously get this into a Gengar as soon as possible. But you may want to avoid something like a TM Devolution, so having at least one Haunter for this 3-1-3 line is a good idea. And then of course, we get to the Gengar EX, which has only 310 HP, a little low for these stage 2s, but Gnawing Curse. Whenever your opponent attaches an energy from their hand to one of their Pokemon, you put 2 damage counters onto it. Now keep in mind, this card, as it reads, has no stipulation about doubling up on Gnawing Curse abilities. So if you have 2 of these, you're essentially putting down 40 damage onto each of the Pokemon that get an energy attached to them from hand. That's a good amount of damage. And then its attack, Tricky Steps, 160 damage, but the ability, man, we're seeing a lot of disruption today, because you may move 1 energy from your opponent's active Pokemon to one of their benched Pokemon. So that's going to mess up a lot of people. That's a very important disruption right there. If they needed an energy to attack with for one of their Pokemon, maybe it's a Charizard EX. Let's take that for example. If they have 2 energy and they've already set up another Charizard or a Charmander with 2 energy, and you move this over to, let's say, their Lumineon, they're going to be very confused, because now they can't get the energy off that Lumineon without maybe retreating it. And then they would have to either retreat their Charizard, right? which they won't have the energy for yet, and so they'll have to use a switch. They're burning their cards to just get that energy back onto the Charizard with a Super Rod or something. It's going to be very disrupting, this Gengar EX. I'm excited to try this out. I feel like I really like disruption decks. Just making it a bit more of a head scratcher of a game for my opponent, I think, is what I like doing. Anyways, moving on to the next card, we have Roaring Moon. We have two of them because it's a dark type deck. I feel like having Roaring Moon EX is a kind of a no-brainer. You just throw this in there and then you can use some energy switches or something, moving stuff around. You're already moving stuff around for your opponent. Let's just move stuff around on our own Pokemon, right? Moving on, we have the Lumineon. We have a Greninja, a Radiant Greninja, I should say. We have our trainers. We have Professor's Research and Iono. Professor Sada's Vitality. So Professor Sada showing up twice in this deck. Which essentially this is going to our Roaring Moon. You ideally want to have both Roaring Moons out. That way you can attach to both of those. But if necessary, just, attach only to one. But ideally, again, you want to have both of them on there. We have one Boss Disorders. That Buddy Poffin once more. We're going to see this quite a bit in a lot of evolution decks. I think it's going to be a go-to. It's going to be a 4 card play set everywhere in most evolution decks. But yeah, of course, Buddy Poffin to get our Ghastly. Then we have 3 Ultra Ball, 4 Dark Patches for putting those discarded energies onto our Greninja, not Greninja, Gengar, and our Roaring Moon EX. We have 4 Energy Switch. Of course, if we use Professor Sada's Vitality to attach to our Roaring Moons, we can use those energy switches to switch them over to the Gengar if necessary. We have 4 Rare Candy to go straight from the Ghastly into the Gengar. 3 Trekking Shoes to hopefully discard some Darkness Energy with. 2 Earthen Vessels, again, discard the Darkness Energy to get Darkness Energy. Super Rods to bring back Darkness Energy. one switch cart because we do have a Roaring Moon, and we may want to heal after using a Frenzy Gouging if they don't knock us out the next turn. Then, again, Prime Catcher. Again, I'm going to say it over and over in these videos for post-rotation decks. This is going to be usually your go-to card when it comes to A-spec cards. So hopefully I can, pull this and not have to buy it, because I can already feel my wallet crying because of how much this thing is going to be on release. Hopefully not too expensive, not like the price of a computer search of like, I don't know, $40 to $50, but we'll see. We have 1 Force Sealed Stone that we can attach to our Lumineon V. We have 3 Pokestomps and 9 basic Darkness Energy. So this is going to be our Gengar EX deck. It works a little like a Roaring Moon EX deck. If you can kind of see, the Dark Patches, the Energy Switch, the Pokestomp, right? The Trekking Shoes, the Professor Sada's Vitality, of course, right? So it works pretty similar to a Roaring Moon deck. Except instead of having a 4-line of Roaring Moon EX, instead you now have Gengar, because you're going to using that Gengar EX for disruption mostly. And then if you need to, you can take the Roaring Moon EX and just KO with that. But yeah, I am excited for both of these disruption decks, both this Gengar EX and the Banette EX decks. Both a Psychic and a Dark type disruption decks. I am all for it. I am definitely excited for post-rotation and definitely excited to try these out. But let me know what you think about these decks down in the comments. And if you want to see some more post-rotation decks, we actually have one more coming up that's going to talk about both a future box and an ancient box. The future Pokemon, ancient Pokemon, it's a whole box of them. So if you like that idea and are interested, definitely get subscribed so you can check them out when they do come out. And of course, leave a like down below so I can know that you like these kind of videos. And maybe we'll do more after that future and ancient video. Anyways, guys, as always, stay safe and thanks for watching.